Welcome to Gundry Shop. We have a very special show for you all. All right, does anyone have any questions about olive oil or gut health in general? Let me know in the chat.
All right, Dr. Gundry, we've got our first question here. Is lion mane powder nutritious?
Lion's mane is a type of mushroom, and if you've ever seen it, we're beginning to see it more and more in grocery stores and at farmers market. It kind of looks like a fluffy lion's mane. Lion's mane got famous because lion's mane and lion's mane powder will actually increase a production of a chemical called brain-derived neurotropic factor, BDNF, that actually stimulates neurons to grow. Yeah, lion's mane powder is very nutritious. If you don't like the idea of using the powder, it comes in capsules. And again, look out for it in the stores. It's beginning to appear. It's really cool to cook, add to your dishes, but yeah, it's actually really nutritious.
Is kale powder nutritious?
Kale is one of those things that you absolutely love or absolutely hate. There's really not much getting around it. Kale is part of the cruciferous family of vegetables. This family of vegetables has a lot of health benefits. The most important that people kind of miss is that it's sulfur-containing vegetables, and kale is very rich in sulfur. Sulfur is incredibly important for making hydrogen sulfide gas by your gut bacteria. Now, that's the rotten egg smell. Believe it or not, we used to think that hydrogen sulfide gas was toxic and it should be avoided at all costs. In the right amount, hydrogen sulfide gas is incredibly important for vascular health. And just the right amount is really important. And the lack of hydrogen sulfide gas is actually very damaging. Why kale powder? Again, a lot of people don't like kale. So kale powder is a great way to throw it in a smoothie and really not know it's there.
Can you speak to the foods that can help with menopause?
That's a great question. And we recently had one of the menopause experts on my program, Mindy Pelt. And I think one of the important things we should all realize that during that transition in perimenopause, the foods that used to be really good for you often are becoming the troublemaker. Carbohydrates, which may at certain times of the monthly cycle be really useful and make you feel good, begin to have some problems. In general, we like people in my practice to start really cutting back, certainly on simple carbohydrates. And sadly, those are the foods you seek out, usually in perimenopause, to make you feel better. The problem is it gives you a little hit of a sugar high, and then it drops and it makes you go looking for more. And that's kind of that dreaded, 10 or 20 pounds that start appearing on your belly or elsewhere and going, but I'm eating exactly the same way. In fact, your hormones have changed so that you no longer can eat exactly the same way. I happen to find that my women who are having problems with hot flashes or mood swings do very well with borage oil. Now, borage oil you can get in capsules. You can also get it in liquid form. I find the capsules really easy. Most of my patients take 1 to 2 grams a day of borage oil. So that's a good start. Many people hear that tofu, soybeans, are really good for menopause because soybeans do contain estrogen-like compounds. My problem with tofu is not a fermented food. Fermentation breaks down the lectins that are high in soybeans and other beans. So tempeh, for instance, is perfectly safe. Nata is perfectly safe. But tofu, because it's not fermented, is a real mischief maker for most of my patients. Please kind of stay away from the tofu and head to the tempeh.
Okay, this next one is, do pressure cookers remove the lectin from pumpkin seeds and sunflower seeds?
Yeah, that's a really good question. The studies that have been done on pressure cooking, one of the sad things is pressure cooking does not destroy gluten, which happens to be a lectin. Now, the good news is there is not any gluten in sunflower seeds and pumpkin seeds. So yes, you can negate the effect of the lectins in sunflower seeds and pumpkin seeds by first pressure cooking them and then roast them the way you usually would. Please don't try pressure cooking wheat, rye, or barley products or oats. It's not going to work.
Okay, and then how long can you eat the olive oil after you open it?
Everybody wants to know how long you can keep olive oil. The reason these are in small bottles is the minute you open the olive oil, it starts to oxidize. And you want to use this up, hopefully, within a few months of opening it. At the maximum, you don't want to go any farther than 6 months after you open it. The other thing that you got to realize is, and I go over to friends' houses, and they have their olive oil in see-through glass jars or plastic, and it's sitting up on the kitchen counter, totally exposed to sunlight. Please, 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 put it in the pantry. Hide it somewhere away from sunlight. You'll notice that this is in a dark glass bottle, and this is in a metal container. That's to protect it from the light oxidation that it'll do. And please, whatever you do, don't buy olive oil in a plastic bottle. That's the worst thing you can do. And always buy it in small batches, use it up and get another one.
Okay, this next one is Maca root nutritious.
Yeah, so Maca root is a tuber. Tubers are probably one of the favorite foods for your gut buddies. Long ago, our maybe great-grandparents ate a lot of tubers because tubers were useful because they could store over the winter. And many people, my great-grandparents, had a root cellar. But the tubers themselves are very difficult to digest early on in our digestion process. These are starch molecules that have all been bounded together in chemical bonds. And the more these starch molecules, a starch molecule is a sugar molecule that's been bonded several times. The more complex that starch bonding is, the harder it is for our digestive enzymes to break those chemical bonds, which means that much of those molecules make it down to your gut buddies, which for the most part are living in your colon. And years ago, every day, a generous supply of food for our gut buddies arrived because we were eating all these tubers. Now, with processing and ultra processing, all the good stuff is removed. So our gut buddies are literally starving to death. So Maca is just another way of getting gut buddies the food they want. Why do you want them to have the food they want? Because they're going to make compounds that actually impact your health. Finally, one of the most important things, there's a really cool theory that I like called the gut-centric theory of hunger. And that is your gut bacteria actually control your hunger. If they're not getting what they want to eat, they literally send text messages to your brain saying, we're starving to death, you're not eating enough, go get something to eat. You go get something to eat, but the problem is there's nothing in what you just grabbed to feed them. And they go, wait a minute, I hear you chewing up there and nothing's coming down the pike for us. So you got cheated, we got cheated, go find some more food. And there's a really cool study that was done with volunteers in China where they put them on a 7 to 14 day water fast. All they got was water. Half of the group got 100 calories of non-digestible fiber, prebiotic fiber, like maca root. The other half got nothing. Interestingly enough, the folks who got 100 calories of fiber that we couldn't absorb had no hunger for up to 14 days. The other group, as you can imagine, were extremely hungry. That tells me, and certainly I see that in my patients, that the more you eat for your gut buddies, and less for this 2 by 3 inch piece of muscle, your tongue, the better off you're going to be. All this talk of food has made me hungry. I think I'll go check out the break room's fridge to see about some lunch.
Okay, Scott wants to know about Tabasco sauce.
Great question. So I mentioned earlier that fermentation generally destroys lectins. Believe it or not, there are bacteria that think lectins are delicious. There are actually bacteria that like to eat gluten. Most people don't have those bacteria in their gut anymore. But Tabasco sauce is fermented. That means the bacteria have eaten all the lectins in Tabasco sauce. So whenever you're choosing a hot sauce, look for how it's made, and fermentation is what you're looking for. So Tabasco sauce is actually really good for you.
Are there any potatoes that are okay to eat?
A sweet potato or a yam, for most people, are the potatoes of choice. Believe it or not, yams are from Africa. They're part of the lily family, the same family as onions and scallions. The sweet potato is actually from the morning glory family, and it's actually an American plant. It's so confusing because they're usually mislabeled in a grocery store. The yam is that ugly kind of white one. The sweet potato is kind of the orange one, with one exception. Japanese sweet potato, that's one of the best. That blue coloring is a polyphenol, and our gut buddies love them. Finally, if you're going to use any of these potatoes, cook them first, put them in the refrigerator, and then reheat them. You'll get a resistant starch.
What's the best protein for vegans?
Oh, that's actually a really good question. So I think for vegans, we have really two choices. First of all, having been a professor at Loma Linda University, an Adventist institution, a vegetarian vegan institution, beans are a really important source of protein for vegans. But sadly, in my practice, vegans are some of the sickest people I see because of this. Now you can get around that. Pressure cooking beans destroys the lectins, but lentils actually have the highest protein content and the least carbohydrate content of any of the legumes. So if you gotta have legumes or beans, try to stick with pressure cooked lentils. And there's several companies that pressure cook them, like Eden, and I have no relationship to them. Finally, the other thing that's important is nuts. Nuts are a superb source of protein, particularly for vegans. And there are study after study, I could go on and on. The more nuts, particularly walnuts, and they're a great source of protein, and they're actually a pretty good source of the proper fat. So those are two good tricks. Final trick is hemp seeds. Hemp seeds have a ton of protein. Hemp protein is another great choice. And there are other proteins down the line. Spirulina is a great protein source, and we can go on and on.
This next one's from Martin. He wants to know about the classic peanut butter and jelly sandwich.
Well, if you wanted to create the perfect lectin bomb, a peanut butter and jelly sandwich is right up there. First of all, each slice of bread, no matter how healthy, no matter how organic, no matter whatever, has 4 teaspoons of sugar in each slice. You're not tasting the sugar, but I can guarantee you it's in there. And don't look for sugar content. Labeling laws were changed a number of years ago to hide the actual content of sugar. So if you like 8 teaspoons of sugar for lunch, start there. Jelly, that's pure fructose. It's pure sugar. Peanut butter, the peanut lectin is one of the most nasty lectins that has ever been discovered. So if you want a lectin bomb and a sugar bomb, have a peanut butter and jelly sandwich.
This next one's for Thanksgiving. What are your thoughts on turducken?
I've certainly had a turducken a few years ago. And for those of you who don't know, a turducken is a turkey that's been basically deboned, stuffed with a deboned duck, and mine actually was stuffed with a deboned chicken. I was really excited. All of our guests thought it was one of the worst meals that I had ever prepared, and I am forbidden from ever getting another turducken as much as I wanted. Okay, it's getting pretty cold in here. I'll see you soon.